You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation. The place where stars and minds align.
Peace. You're now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humble host, Harut, and we got the man of the hour, Brother Ra. How you doing?
My brother, living and learning and applying, my brother. That's about it. What about yourself, man?
Man, I'm on that same wave, man. On that same wavelength, man. Just trying to, like I always say, man, trying to take it to the next level, man, and try to get like my brother over here, man.
They don't even know. They don't even know.
Gee will, man.
They don't even know.
But before we get too far, I want to remind you all that this episode is brought to you by Push Forward Media Group and Calabrucia Astrology and our good people over on Patreon. Once again, thank you all for your support on Patreon. On there, like I said, that's the primary vehicle that we accept questions of the show. They also get the episodes early. And sometimes we give them a opportunity to check in on the show live as well. And then we got, other little, little goodies and stuff like that we got planned coming up for our Patreon. So definitely shout out to them and thank you for your support. As far as getting in touch with us, firstly, follow us. Make sure you follow us at Cosmic Convo on Instagram. Like and follow our page on Facebook. We're on Facebook as Cosmic Convos Podcast. You can find us there. We also post the episodes there as well. And subscribe to Push It Forward on YouTube, because that's where we post the video episodes. We post it on Facebook and YouTube as well. So, definitely tune into there. And you can find Push It Forward Media Group at Push It Forward. That's PUSHITFWD on Instagram, and pushitforward.com spelled the same way on the web. There you can go and you can get the chart package. You can get the Cosmic Convos t-shirts. We got some other ones coming up as well that I'm sure everybody's gonna love, and you can get all that stuff at those locations. Brother Ra, how can the people get in touch with you?
You can hit me up on Calabrucia Astrology, right, at gmail.com, or you can hit me up either Facebook or IG via Shechem Ron. One of those will definitely get at me.
Indeed. So here we are, man. We at episode 24.
Yes, indeed. We're one episode away from the goal line.
From the season finale,
Indeed.
And no, we're not going away for the rest of the year. We just, take like a week off or something like that, and we come back. Just have to, that the season model helps organize things a little bit, and we can change tones a little bit, and I think it just kind of fits the cycle, of how things flow out there. So that's the whole rationale behind the seasonal approach. But we will be wrapping up this season on next week. Next week is the season finale, so we're gonna have a special show for you lined up there. And man, we flew through this season.
Yeah, it was quick. COVID helped that out, man. That was a COVID express.
Indeed. But it's been great though, man. I mean, the podcast has grown significantly. We've been able to improve it, and we definitely got some more improvements coming up. And like I said, y'all hit us up, man. Give us your feedback. Ain't none of us you get butt hurt from some, from some critiques and stuff like that. So, you got some critiques, let us know, man. We trying to, take this science, this approach to the science, definitely to more people. It would be great to get it in some aspect of, in the mainstream. Maybe it don't got to be all the way mainstream, but we can go and make our little dent in it and stuff like that. And yeah, man, just get people locked in, and get people in tune with the, with the science and stuff like that. So yeah, man, and make sure you're sharing this, share it with people, let people know about us and stuff like that. As time go on, we just only gonna get better, more, better topics, different dynamics, different things like that. So yeah, man, we definitely want your feedback and whatnot. You got anything to say about that, bro?
No, I just I see it. It is growing. It's expanding. Audience base is definitely getting becoming more pervasive. So definitely send it out. Share it. Uh, There'll be some nice predictions that you can wow your friends with or impress people and say, hey, you know what? I already got the 411 on that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you want the 411 every week, go to Cosmic Convos. So definitely let people know.
Indeed, indeed. So yeah, man. You know, last episode, again, we keep syncing up, and unfortunately, man, we dropped that episode, and then the good brother Chadwick Boseman transitioned or whatnot. So we definitely want to say a safe travels to him. Rest in power to that brother. You know what I'm saying? Of course, I didn't know him personally, but from all sites looking in, man, he seemed like a pretty solid guy.
Yeah,
Definitely an
yeah,
excellent actor, excellent artist.
superb,
You know what I'm
superb.
saying?
Yeah,
Made a great contribution in that regard and stuff like that. So definitely want to send some light and some blessings to his family.
indeed. Yeah, it was almost like you knew the brother.
Hmm.
You could feel his spirit come across the screen, and you could feel his spirit come across off screen. Um, just a very iconic individual with regards to his abilities. I mean, I when I watch Get On Up, I'm like, wow, it's comparable to Jamie Foxx's Ray. I mean, phenomenal transformation. And the walk, the brother, the one that walk that brother got, what I mean, the James Brown walk, it just, it just, the brother definitely made his mark on myself and I'm sure the rest of the world. So I bid him safe, and Godspeed journey to, to the inner plane. So a lot of times people don't know that when these transitions pass, um, the best thing to do is send light, and really send rejoicing and um, praise and adulations, and it really helps to move faster, um, to that next journey. So by all means, I watch my Black Panther, uh, um, you know, did my Black Panther kind of salute to the brother, and definitely sent some energy to the inner planes to him. So Godspeed to the brother.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. You know, and you know, yeah, like I said, we had just did the health episode, and I don't have a good time on them and stuff like that, so
Mm.
it's really hard to.
Well, I know he's Scorpio's sun. We can always look at his planetary placements, but I know he's Scorpio's sun.
Hmm.
And
Then see,
Rahu and Ketu is on that approach to the sun. I mean, Robin Ketu's on the approach to the sun.
hmm
Ketu's a cusp, right on the cusp of it's in that Gandanta zone. So who knows? I mean, I probably looked up to see it in there, and something would be revealed, but we just don't have a solid time, so it's very difficult to really say, you know, uh, and those things kind of come out later. Sometimes times will come out. People do the research and it manifests. And when we get it, we will definitely be doing it. If we get it, we will definitely be doing a tribute to that brother. But
Yeah, I mean Nipsey's was the same way. When before he
yep, yep,
transitioned,
yeah, he sure was.
the time wasn't out there, but
Hmm.
a lot of
Hmm.
times when people transition, the birth certificate, people ends up,
Yeah, it comes out.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
indeed, indeed. So moving into this next episode, we do have a question. It's a quick one. Feel like answering a question?
Let's do it.
All right. So one of our good brothers, our patrons, wanted to know: is there a good book on Dogon astrology?
Um, there's not a good anything on Dogon astrology. uh, you know, I could say this to you. If it's truly Dogon, you probably ain't gonna find it in a book. You
Nah.
know what I mean? If it's real Dogon, bona fide certified coming from their mouth. Remember, we talked about the 4 levels the other day, last time we had our podcast.
Hmm.
And if you understand, they have 4 levels to gain entrance to that knowledge. You can only imagine how they would treat someone from a Western perspective. I'll tell you, and it's not anything to do with per se astrology, but just to understand how the elders and how the great wise men of our ancestral traditions view giving that knowledge out. You should read a book called Of Water and the Spirit.
I got that book
Excellent
too,
book,
but
by Malidoma Some.
mhm.
And in that book, he expressly explains that those secret, hidden aspects of our knowledge is not given or bequeathed to those that are not initiated. So, if you've ever read or come across a book, I'm sure you have, brother. Pale Fox is one that definitely would twist your wig,
Mhm.
right, to get to understand the concepts and the symbolism inside that book alone. There's another book called Conversations with Olga Tameli. Um, Excellent book. Excellent
Yeah.
book. Again, the concepts are beyond. You know what I mean. You have to be initiated into that system. To have that. There's a couple of books by a white guy by the name of Laird Scranton.
Mhm.
Um, 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 he goes into a lot of symbolism in the Kemetic tradition, and this is a white guy. But guess what? The funny thing is, I was sitting there watching, and he's on one of the kind of like Egyptian kind of specials that they do. Actually, the one I was watching is a pretty decent one.
Mhm.
But he was on there, and I'm looking on the shelf, and what do I see in the back of the shelf? A Meta Volume 1. So I said, oh, okay, right. He's trying to dig into the real, understanding of what the symbolism is all about. But Laird Scranton is an excellent individual if you want to look at some of the Dogon concepts as it relates to Kemet. Again, it is a European, so I mean, not to take away from his work, but at the same time, it's not something that we would be using as an initiation type piece of information.
Uh,
But I would not I would not venture to say adequately that there is a book that you could use or even connect to get a general understanding of that form of astrology.
um, this brother here, Master Naba.
Hmm.
I don't know if y'all can see that. I mean,
There it is.
yeah, Master Naba. He has a couple lectures out there. He actually transitioned. Definitely rest in power to this brother. But he's actually from he is from Dogon country. He is a Dogon.
Hmm.
And he did a lot of lectures back in the day and stuff like that. But he has a website, I think earthcenter.com.
Hmm.
People over there, they still have his stuff available. And he did some lectures on, sidereal astrology and Dogon culture.
Hmm.
So you might want to check that out as well. but it's not. There's no like like
Mm,
a master
no,
text out there.
that's not
You
even a
know?
text that would say this is what this is. This is what this is. It's nothing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm glad it's like that,
Hmm.
right? I'm thankful that it's like that. That some of our ancestors have not sold out. You know what I mean? They're keeping it authentic, where you got to go through and get it, right, and be really a part of what it is that you're doing. You know, everybody else in it, and you know, what they say, the game is to be sold, not told, right?
Yeah.
There it is, right?
Indeed, indeed. So hopefully that answers that question for you. And man, let's go ahead and get into this episode.
Let's do it.
All right. So kind of almost a relevant,
Very
to
relevant.
what we were just talking about. You know, um, me personally, I don't ever approach this subject, lightly and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
Um, but today, a lot of times we, especially in modern times, you see a lot of people, things happen out of the blue, and it shocks the world. And it's like, man, where did that come from? I wonder if they could have seen it coming, or if somebody could have seen this
Mm-hmm.
coming and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And as always, the answer is yes. And today we're going to talk about key placements that may elude or predict or create the environment for sudden transitions, in somebody's destiny or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So this is definitely interesting topic. um you know and I don't know, just kind of piggyback. I don't know if Chadwick Boseman would technically would call for a sudden transition,
Mm-hmm.
but more here we're talking about like assassinations,
And we're
things
gonna
like
see
that.
how in a minute. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna see how in a minute. Those players, typically chronic illness deaths. Saturn is more the player.
Hmm.
Chronic illnesses. Rahu, Cancer is obviously a player, right? There's a couple of books on cancer, excellent books on cancer and astrology.
Hmm.
But Rahu, Rahu is the player, right? In Cancer, Saturn, of course, is as well, because anything that is long and drawn out, right? There's no suddenness to it. Right?
Hmm.
Pretty much what's going to happen. And I really wish I could have got to the brother. Could have told him about Gerson's therapy. I mean, if you're doing chemotherapy, why not? You know what I mean? Gerson's therapy is an alternative perspective, an alternative possible treatment to cancer, and it has shown a great deal of success. In fact, that's why it's not here in America. You have to go to Tijuana. But yeah, no, his death would definitely fall under a chronic, long-term Saturn Rahu type deal.
Hmm.
You know, but with sudden deaths, the key player is Mars, right? Usually, Mars will have some interaction, some way, somehow. We'll see in a little while here, how that looks many times. One I wanted to, if I forgot to mention, is Abraham Lincoln, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, and that is another one that definitely would count as an assassination or sudden death type events. And we say sudden death, there's different types. Most of the ones we're going to cover today, in fact, all of them are going to be um, by the hand of another individual. But car crashes, plane crashes, sudden accidents, anything that's not, where the person has foreknowledge, um, then it counts, right?
Hmm.
So blown up in dying in a fire, things like that. Those are sudden eighth house types events, and those are seen. My thing about this whole, piece is the question, right? the ultimate question, of course, going along with which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? But the question is, do you have free will? You know, do you really have it, right? And if you do, what is it? You know, how can you have free will if these things are predetermined, right? So, we'll get into that in a little bit and talk about what that kind of potentially looks like. I do have Abraham Lincoln, so we'll kind of dig in him a little bit too. But nonetheless, right? Let's get into some discussions here. So, the eighth house is the house that primarily we look at, right, for sudden deaths. And this eighth house usually has a strong link with, first of all, the ascendant, right? And the ascendant, of course, is the physical body. It's the container in which we use to navigate this physical plane. So that has to have an interplay or interaction in some form, fashion, or some means, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the thing about it is that when these things happen, the triggers are usually seen within the dashas, right? The dashas are usually key players. Sometimes the dashas will be a little elusive depending on how things go, but that also gives a good clue as to what the culprits or who the indicators behind that assassination or event.
Yeah.
So, the other key piece is looking at the D8, the D8, right? The Ashtamsha, right? And the Ashtamsha, the D8, shows a great deal of information, right, in regards to the cause of death, right? Especially if it's sudden, right?
Yeah.
And most of the charts we're going to look at, when you look at the D8 has some connotations around that those means. Another means you could look at, and astrology is, we have these different kind of layers we look at, but the Pada chart, right? Pada chart can also be used, right, inside of that to see if the eighth Pada, and when I say Pada, we're talking about the Arudha lot, the Ruta of the eighth house. Um, Looking at that Pada, if it connects to Mars, if it connects to the eighth house, if it connects to the eighth Lord, right? That shows a strong propensity. Even if there's something in the eighth house in the Ashtamsha, many times will show the means of death, right? So, um, you know, the real kind of caveat, the real kind of thing that you want to interject into your brain is how, right, are we able to see these things if you or I or anyone else might have the ability to, let's say, change or alter, right, the course of our destiny. And Tupac, that's a perfect example, right? He's Aries ascendant, right? I think we had Pac's chart. Uh, we discussed him, I think, last
We mentioned
season. We
him.
mentioned him,
We didn't
right?
get
We didn't
too.
get too deep into it, yeah. But
Uh,
I would, if I remember Pac's chart correctly, yeah,
got it right here.
yeah, Jupiter's in the eighth. Eighth lord is in the 10th. Yep, eighth lord aspects the ascendant
Mm-hmm.
right there. What dasha did he pass in?
Mercury.
Mercury.
I mean,
Mercury
aspects the
is
eighth house.
Mercury aspects the eighth house.
Is
Danishta,
Megashira.
Mars. Yep, because it has Sambandha with Mars through the nakshatra. Yeah, he's got 3 planets aspect in the eighth house, and then Jupiter, and then Venus is where. Yeah, Venus is there too. So Mars aspect in the ascendant, eighth lord, and Venus, right, which is his nakshatra sublord, conjuncts Mercury,
Mm-hmm.
right? that also shows that propensity, right? So definitely, yeah. And we look a little deeper. I'm sure we would see some. If you add the increase those periods, the
Yeah.
sub periods, you're gonna see it in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're gonna see it in there, and that was clearly by accident. I mean, it wasn't not so bad, but it was murder.
Yeah.
Um, in fact, let's see what Sadasha would he be in? Booty, just to
What
increase a little bit.
do you remember the month exactly when Tupac transitioned?
September the 13th.
All right. So that would put us at Mercury Moon.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Mercury Moon.
Mercury Moon Jupiter. September 6, 1996.
September 13th, but close.
Well, I mean, it definitely
It's,
was Mercury Moon Jupiter.
yeah, it was Mercury Moon Jupiter. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and Jupiter is in the eighth.
Yep. And it's still,
Jupiter.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So,
Mm-hmm. And then Jupiter has some bonded with Saturn, and so
yeah.
does the Moon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Mercury Moon, and Mercury rules the third, which is eighth from the eighth.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times that will also kick it into, and it's in the 12th house behind it, which aspects the eighth. Yeah, and then Sun is fifth lord aspected, and fifth house is aspected by Mars. So yeah, it definitely is there. But that Mars aspecting the ascendant is the key,
Mm-hmm.
because it's, even though that when it aspects the ascendant like that, it's, you have to take that ascendant lord, the sublord, and Venus is in there. Venus is aspecting the eighth house, so that would be a trigger because it's with Mercury. Those two things, they conjunct. So anytime you have those planets conjunct, they take on the kind of they take on the job of the other person or the other planet per se, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that affinity is definitely there, definitely there.
Indeed.
So let's look at Marilyn Monroe. Let's do her first. Let's look at old Marilyn here. And if you look again right here, right, um, she's Cancer ascendant, right? Got Moon in the seventh. Of course, that Moon aspecting back to the ascendant makes her attractive. Venus in the 10th also gives her the beauty,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and believe it or not, Saturn aspecting Venus, and Saturn's exalted. So Venus is, so the tenet of Venus' sign is exalted, aspecting back to her own, back into its Lord. So that also shows Saturn aspecting Venus many times will make a woman attractive, believe it or not. Because Saturn structures, right, the Venus. It gives, right, uh, 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 depth and symmetry to the Venus.
Yep.
So looking in her chart, and brother, can you pull up the D8 as well? And you grab the D8.
Uh, there we go. Hold up. Is that the right one?
There's going to be Vargas 3. There's the D8. So there's our D1. Do you know how to, if you go back to the main screen, go back to her regular chart,
Mm-hmm.
go up, back to her regular, just bring up the big chart.
It's a lag.
Yeah, it's a lag.
Yeah. It's about to pop up. Okay.
Go to the D9, hover over it,
Mm-hmm.
blanket, hit right click.
Okay, I got
blanket, and then pull up the D8.
you.
So in her D8, you'll see that the sun is exalted in the eighth, so it empowers sudden death, right? There it is, D8. Accidents.
Slagging.
Yeah, it's all good. So here's the thing, right? There's a symbiotic relationship between the D1 and the D8. The D1, the Rossi, the main chart, there it is, right? There it is, perfect. So the Rossi chart, right? When we look at D charts, when we look at Varga charts, harmonics, we want to interface it. You can use the D8 as a chart, right? To see a whole context and a holistic purview of the whole situation with regards to accidents and sudden events. But the one key thing that you always do is match the house that you're looking at, right? Meaning that if you're looking at a D8 chart, you're looking at the eighth house harmonic or the eighth house. So you go to that house first, right? When you go to that house first, you're looking at the sun exalted in Aries. So what does that do? You would think that it would be empower her to have longevity. No, that's in the first. That's in the D1. In the D8, the eighth house becomes the actual ambassador or the emissary or the kind of go to or the person, the thing that carries out the sudden events. Right? Is
Mm-hmm.
the eighth house in the D8 chart? Well, if you look, it's number one exalted, so it's empowered. It's given full reign to give sudden events. Not only that, the Lord of the D8 goes to the eighth house in the D1. So now the D8 is empowered to do damage in the D1. Well, if you look at the D1's eighth Lord, it goes into Scorpio, which is ruled by Mars in the D8.
Mm-hmm.
So again, still further impacting, right? And not only that, when you look at the sign of her ascendant in the D8, Mars is conjuncted, right? So Mars is leaning every which way into her eighth house and connecting to her ascendant. Remember, I said the ascendant Lord has to have some bond or connection. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
moon in her Rasi chart is in Dahanishta, which is ruled by Mars,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, she was known for depression, right? And they try to use that to try to segue a drug habit that took her out. But you can clearly see this is not self-inflicted, right? The third house is the house of hands, right? It's ruled by Mercury, right? Mercury is aspected by Mars, but Mercury itself is also conjunct the sun, which usually gives that person a lot of control, right, over that particular house, meaning that the sun is conjunct um, Mercury. The sun empowers, enlightens, gives insight to whatever planet it conjuncts. So this person would not be an individual that would commit suicide, right? Just not going to happen. This person was murdered, right? Beyond a doubt. Um, the other thing is Jupiter is there, right? And
Yeah.
Jupiter rules the sixth house, and it rules the ninth. So the ninth, the Lord of the ninth is in the 12th from itself, which loses the protection that the ninth house can provide, and it empowers the sixth house aspect of Jupiter in the chart. So now
Mm-hmm.
enemies have come, right? And K2 being there also considers Jupiter being empowered to do sudden things. And Jupiter is in Dahanishta.
Mm-hmm.
Mars ruled. Mars is in Purvabhadra Rapada, which is Jupiter ruled. So they both have a very close connection to creating sudden, unexpected events.
Yeah.
And if we look at the dasha, let's check to see when she passed. Right,
You got the year exactly when she
it's
transitioned?
1965, I believe.
Okay. What month?
I think I want to say she passed in August of 62.
August of 62. All right. So yeah,
Mhm.
that looks definitely about right. Boom.
So we
Mm,
should be in a Jupiter
boom.
Mars dasha. There it is.
Yep.
19 June 26th. She just entered her Jupiter Mars dasha. And isn't it something that Jupiter Mars is in the eighth house?
Hmm.
So the dasha that she checked out in, or they checked her out in, is identical to the two planets that reside in the eighth house. Jupiter ruling again, ninth house, sixth house of enemies, 12th house of of, of higher knowledge, wisdom, right? Grace and protection. And it's lost in the eighth, conjunct Mars, right? Mars rules the fifth and the 10th, but at the same time, it's in the eighth, so it's empowered to do those things.
Yeah.
So again, showing clearly that the dasha period is the period that you can look to many times, about 8 times out of 10, to clearly see exactly what happened. And she was murdered, right? Without a doubt.
Hmm.
Without a doubt. Um, so that's one great example. And again, you can see the Ashtamsha, the D8 has Mars debilitated, right?
Hmm.
So one of the rules that we know about exaltations, which the sun is exalted in the eighth in the Ashtamsha, the ruler of that exalted planet has to be in a very good dignity, and it is debilitated in that particular position. So again, doesn't do very well,
Hmm.
opening the door for sudden violent events. Right,
Would you
very
would you
unfortunate.
so I know you're probably going to twist this in at the end, but in regards to the question of free will or not,
Hmm.
and you see that Mars is driving in where it's positioned. Do you think if the type of men that she was drawn
Affiliated
to,
with. Hmm.
you know
Well, let's say not the type. Let's say a man that she was
amen.
affiliated with. Yeah. Because other than that, and when I say a man, they say that she actually was dating a couple of the Kennedys,
Hmm.
but the one that took her out was, the one that they took out, and makes sense because it's a loose end,
Hmm.
right? Your
Hmm.
bedroom, the bedwar, has all kind of secrets at the White House, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to their paramours, and so you know, I'm sure, she probably had some information, if not just some, quite a bit on the dirt that was going on in the kidney's backyard.
Yeah.
So, by all means, she had to be removed. That would just be too much of a loose end.
Hmm.
But, you know, she, when it comes to the type of men, you got to look at Mars, right?
Hmm.
And Mars is in the eighth, right? I mean, the Kennedys have some serious connections, y'all. These guys weren't just, you know, the picturesque Boy Scouts that they would like for you to believe. They had clear connections to the mafia, to the mob,
Yeah.
right? In fact, JFK is notorious for having those connections through um, dealing in the unions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah, them unions ain't no joke. I'm from Cleveland, from Ohio,
hmm
them unions, man,
right?
they especially back in the day, they got busy,
They're
man.
like they're the mob.
Yeah,
They're
they
the mob.
literally.
Literally, they are the mob. I mean, they're no different, right? So
Yeah.
there's no different. So yeah, you definitely could say that Mars being the type of men, that she dated in the eighth house, Sun also being the type of men, but Sun is in 11th, and 11th is a high powered house, but I really looked at Mars, but then Mars does aspect the Sun as well, right?
Hmm.
So good connection there too. But you know, the question of free will is this: you have to know you have a choice in order to make a choice,
Absolutely.
and if there is no choice presented, then there's no will. There's no free will, right?
Yeah.
There is a will, right? But that requires training.
Yeah.
See, your will requires training.
Yeah.
So you just don't go out and just start using your will and making choices and just no. Those are things that you develop. Those are skills and adaptations to the baseline of who you are um, as an individual. So when I see or I hear free will, I kind of scotch back, say, well, tell me where and how, right?
Hmm.
Because free will would have involved making choices inherent in her life that would have was completely changed the course, right, of actions. And so then we have to ask then, you know, had you or I, and here's the thing, could she even have had a conversation with someone like you or I at that time? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, probably
And,
not.
and probably not, right? We're talking the 60s,
Yeah.
early 60s, right?
Yeah.
So, Jyotish is not in vogue, right?
No.
Astrology is kind of like looked upon as, something other than, it's kind of like
Hippie.
tabloidish kind of, which still is today, right?
Yeah.
So, would she really, would she have, I mean, would she have met, a diviner, maybe even a tarot card reader
Yeah.
that could have said, you know, hey, you're involved with a man that's about to be killed. You're going to be part of that process. What could she have done? Right? What could she have changed? What course of action could she have really remitted? So sometimes we have to step back and then ask if the person has access to free will, what is the source of it?
Hmm.
Right? Is
Hmm.
that source available?
Hmm.
Is that person even in the light of thinking about that source? Because someone can bring it to you and be right in front of you,
Yep.
present it to you, and because of your thinking, you wouldn't even hear it. So these are questions, right, that we really have to ponder as spiritual sojourners. That we really want to know: is this thing really rigged? Are we here under a prescripted process where we're just walking out and realizing what we're here to do? Um, I would side with that view that we are here. It is predestined. There is ordained events that you must endure, right?
Yeah.
How you endure them, with what fortitude and what knowledge you endure them, is another to deal altogether. It's like being given a bad hand. But
Hmm.
if I have a bad hand with an expert player behind me, right, that hand can be played to a maximum yield, right?
Yeah.
Provided I have someone in my corner with insight into the game, right?
Yeah.
And that's where diviners come in. Um, but looking at her chart is clear to me, right, that she was definitely removed.
Indeed.
Um, the next person we can look at is JFK. Why not go right on down the line,
Mm.
right? And again, right? You got
Lord.
to see this, folks. It's a dead ringer, right?
Yeah.
It's right there, right? Uh, Mars and Mercury. Now, look, his ascendant is Virgo. His ascendant degree is 27 degrees, which puts him in a direct connection with Mars, which is the sublord, right? Which is the ruler of Chitra, right? And it's in the eighth. So the ruler of the ascendant, which is Mercury, and the sublord of the ascendant are both in the eighth house, right? Both, both,
Hmm.
right? So, you know, go figure, right? I mean, the person themselves are born, literally ascendant lord is there with Mars, and it's less. We're talking almost just a little over 2 degrees, folks. In this is a strong conjunction. So, as we were looking here, Mercury and Mars are conjoined in the eighth, and that's a big player when it comes to really understanding how this sudden event unfolds, the sudden death unfolds. So the ascendant lord and the eighth always have the ascendant lord and the eighth and Mars always to have a sambandha or connection uh, when it comes to these type of events. And so the last one we looked at with regards to Marilyn Monroe was real easy to see because Jupiter and Mars were sitting nicely in the eighth house. It's a little different for John because the dasha that he actually died in was Jupiter Saturn, right? Um, he died November 22nd, 1963. He was in a Jupiter Saturn, I believe Saturn dasha, right? Jupiter, right, is in the ninth, right? But if you look at Jupiter's degree, check the degree.
Hmm.
What's that degree? Should be right at 0 degrees,
Yep.
right? So that 0 degrees cusp is really tight, right? I mean, it's really standing on the border of the eighth house, which is actually not very healthy or helpful with regards to Jupiter because it's been marginalized. So he has that eighth house, ninth house kind of feel. Well,
Hmm.
technically, if you look at the degree of the ascendant, it's at 22 degrees, 27 degrees. Jupiter is before 27 degrees, so he still has an effect in the eighth house. And that's something,
Hmm.
right? Because he's not past 27 degrees 23 minutes, which would put him, he still would be in the ninth house, but technically he would be at that degree that's past, right? Where it wouldn't really act as an eighth house tenant. So
Yeah.
Jupiter acts as an eighth house tenant. That's where the subtleties of Jyotish comes in because you have to literally get keen and look to say, wait a minute, Jupiter's role as a Dasha Lord should facilitate something in the eighth house, and it absolutely does.
Hmm.
Right now, yes, right, it is in the ninth technically, but because of the degree, I mean, it's 26 minutes, literally, it a few minutes back, right? Or not a few minutes back, but a few days back, right? Or even maybe a day back, it would have knocked that Jupiter right on into the eighth house. So again, right, this shows that the dashas are lords of karma. They are the dispensers of our karmic recompense. Well, Jupiter, Saturn is the dasha. Now check this out.
All right.
Check this out, right? So Mars aspects Saturn, right? He aspects it.
They both. It's mutual. Yeah.
And wait,
Oh.
you went ahead, right? Not only does Mars aspect Saturn, and Mars is less than 5 degrees from Jupiter.
Mm.
Saturn aspects Mars. So there's a mutual effect that Saturn and Mars have on one another. That is a very intense aspect. So that aspect allows Saturn, right, to disseminate that martial karma, right? So showing this really hones in to show that the dashas have power to give karmic results. You can't get any better than that particular positioning. Again, over and over and over and over and over and over and over, you're going to begin to see a pattern. A pattern is that our life is predestined. It's preordained. You know, the movie The Matrix, in part 2, Neo was talking to the Oracle, and the Oracle said, "You've already made the decision.
Mhm.
You just now come to understand why you made the decision." That's about the closest to truth you can get, right? You've already made these decisions. These already have been carved into existence. It's like a book, right? If I could change the book at any point in the book, it wouldn't be a book anymore, right? Because it
Yeah.
would lose the context of the story of the book. Well, your life is the same way.
Hmm.
Your life has a context to it. You can't just change the script overnight, right? Doesn't You can't just wake up and say, "Well, tomorrow I'm gonna meet Kamala Harris and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna be on her board of advisors," and not gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a script. There is a ring past knot for us to deal with, and within that ring past knot, you have complete control, right? That is where you have control. But without outside of that ring past knot, you are bound by the laws of karma. And so showing that not only in the first example, in this example, we can clearly see that Jupiter, Saturn, right, would be the facilitator of some sudden, unexpected, and unfortunate event.
Indeed.
In fact, why don't we take a look at his D8 if we can throw that in there, just to kind of tag it on in, right? In fact, if you can go back, we can, or actually, because his D8's already here, right? Look
Hmm.
at the eighth house. Look at the eighth. Look in the eighth.
Mm.
What's sitting in there? Mars,
Mars.
right? So again, right, showing directly that this is something that you have to consider, that the D8 is going to reflect back to the D1, right? That this is something that is going to take place in a sudden, unexpected way, right? Um, Looking at that, Saturn connects to Jupiter in the D8, right? From the connects to Jupiter in the D1 from the D8, right? So again, also showing the connection between those two. Um, Mars has aspect on Aries from the D8, again
Hmm.
showing the connection between the martial propensities and the sudden outcomes, because the Sun and Mars, right, are Sambandha in the eighth, and there's Sambandha in the D1 as well, right? So they have a connection meaning, right? Again, right? I mean, what is the nakshatra that Mars sits in, right? It should be in Kritika, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, it's
No, no.
Baharani. Baharani.
Rani. Yeah, Rani.
Right. And they still all connect, right? Because Mars is in Venus's ruled Venus ruled nakshatra. Venus is with the Sun. They
Hmm.
all connect. So Sambandha again, Sambandha means connections, right? Interactions, ties, links, right? They're there in JFK's chart. So again, showing clearly, right? And we could get into the Atma Karak and all those different things. They would reveal some similar things, right? But for the most part, right, you can clearly see that the dashas are the facilitators of the karmic output, right?
I would say also that in that D8, um, Jupiter and Saturn were 6-8 from each other, quincunx.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Again, showing that in that period there's going to be strife, some major issue, right? Because those are major players, right? Jupiter and Saturn are the big boys on the block. So all of this ties in that karma is real, right? You can't escape it. Yeah, using the same model with JFK. He had advisors all around him. And you mean to tell me not one astrologer, not one diviner? No, because that's not what
It's
was in the destiny,
yeah.
right? That's not what was there, right? Even though his ninth house is situated fairly okay, right? Venus is there, Sun and Jupiter technically is there. So you would think that he would have some kind of ninth house karmic, karmic opportunity for to avert. It's not there. So really looking at this, it sits in my spirit that, you know, when I look at a chart, I can look with confidence, I can look with assurity, I can look with um, conviction to know that this destiny, provided the time is right, information is correct, right? This
Mm-hmm.
destiny is going to play itself out, whether you like it or not. What you can do is to navigate, to mitigate, right? To accentuate your life with positive, spiritual, uplifting things and watch how the negatives, if they are there, turn into a positive. That is the blessing and the benefit to having foreknowledge, because you can literally, right, turn, manure into, a whole field of you get return on your investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I teach my students that the Dastana house is 6, 8, and 12. The first key in Dastana is Du, like Dukkha, right? And Dukkha is suffering, right? Dukkha is angst, right? Dukkha is pain. But the Du in Dukkha also ties it to dung, right? And dung, right, is the fertilizer, right, that allows whatever issues that are in life to become, right, viable means of nutrition and sustenance. So these houses, right, 6th, 8th, and 12th, even though they're there to create the set of obstacles that we are needing to face, that we need to deal with, that we need to grow, right, then that is actually the gift, right, that causes us to become great, that causes us to become better, to become stronger. However, you have to ask yourself again, what life, right, entails for an individual to ingest and imbibe that kind of karmic recompense, right? That's a deep thought, and I don't want to take us into the depth of those thoughts, but just to say, to think about, because the conjecture is, and I don't want to say this is true, but the conjecture is you choose to come to this plane to deal with these things, right? Think about the karmic choice. Think about the karmic insight for someone to go through a life of having being not only at the height of life, but being at the height of other people's lives, meaning the president of the United States is, for all intents and purposes, or
Mm-hmm.
was the leader of the free world in the 60s. So, considering that, and to have that as a choice, quote unquote, a choice that they chose to come in and deal with that, that's a ponderous question. But, right, know that even with or without that choice, whatever it may be, karma will always win, right? Time, right, will always have its just due, right? And that the one benefit that we have is to be in the present, to be conscious, to be aware, self-aware, so that in that time, in that space, we navigate properly. So let's take a look at John Lennon, right? John is an excellent example, another Virgo ascendant, right? He's got quite a few planets in the ascendant. He's got Sun, Rahu, and Mars. Well, here we go, right? Good old Mars, right, is sitting right there. Mars is the ruler of the eighth house in the ascendant, right? That's big, right? Because that literally shows, again, a connection between some unexpected transformational thing and his body, right? His physical vehicle. Mars is at 9 degrees The ascendant is at 12 degrees. Rahu's at 17, Sun is at 22. Right? But look to the 8th house. Look at the placement that's there. It is a debilitated Saturn. And remember, folks, now look, there are a lot of people that have debilitated Saturns on this planet, and they are not all just horribly horrified from Saturn's placement being debilitated. There are a lot of things that, right, people that do very well in life with Jupiter, Saturn debilitated. But in the gradation of things, right, Saturn's a first rate malefic, and it being debilitated is really shows a pattern or a struggle to deal with patience and long suffering.
And
Nonetheless,
I don't see I don't think it's canceled either.
no, it's not canceled at all.
Yeah.
No, um, no, it's not. Um, not even in.
Well, in the
Yeah, actually, yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Vamshire,
yeah.
it gets exalted. So
Yeah, I was gonna say it does. Yeah, I'll just see that. So it does get some cancellation in the bombshell. But again, uh,
he
that's a
doesn't make it
tight
there.
one. Yeah, the cancellations have to be stacked, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order to really be viable, you have to have like 3 or 4 cancellations to stack them, right? Then it's a solid cancellation. Then, in other words, it's somewhat canceled. And again, the ruler of this particular planet in the D1 does not it's not placed well, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
just not. It's in Virgo, which is 6 signs away from its from it's 6 signs away from Saturn's debilitation, right? That's not good, right? It's conjunct Rahu, which then also is a first rate malefic, right? Not good, right? Um, Mars aspects the 8th house, right? Further inflaming and inflating Saturn's discontent, right? Although Jupiter's there and they are by degree conjunct, right? It's
Wow.
still not enough, right? It's still not enough, right? It's still not enough. Venus is in the 12th house, right? Which is the sub ruler of Jupiter and Saturn in Nakshatra Baharani. So again, in the 12th house, right? And then Sun has some bond or connection with Mars. Again, it does not bode well for an individual to escape possibly the potential of death. Well, let's look at the dashas,
Boom.
right? I believe he died towards the end of 1980, correct?
Yeah, but he's still in the Jupiter Saturn.
Right. So he's in the Jupiter Saturn dasha when they check him out. And look what's in the 8th house. My goodness. It's Jupiter and Saturn. Again, folks, this is just, you can't get any better, right, than this. Right? This is clearly showing that karma is being dispensed, right? Whether it be positive karma, negative karma, all karma is karma, right? They say that gold chains is just like, the only difference is one shines and the other one doesn't, but chains are chains, right? So, nonetheless, that karma, right, played itself out, and the karma is paid, right? Now, I don't know what the debt was. I don't know what was owed, but I can tell you, sudden events, sudden unexpected deaths are literally it's an instant release of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
So I want people to understand what this really is all about. When you have an instant release from the soul, you're snatched out. So literally, you are able to see almost in an instant what's going on. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like when you go through the regular steps of death where you phase out. Like there's different parts that phase out, right? And you get to actually do that in a very peaceful, calm way, right? Which is the proper way. But when you're snatched, right? I mean, if you watch the Zapruder film, that man was snatched out his body. He was no longer present when that bullet went through his brain.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right. This some people say, "What about Marilyn Monroe?" Trust me, at the point in which that happened, it was a shock. It wasn't like she was doing something to herself to be. It was a shock, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, these shocks take you out, and you can see it's almost like saying, hey, it's a curse, but it's a gift because you don't have to go through the other processes that most of us go through, having to, shed off certain layers of the spirit in order to come to where you need to go to make that transition.
Yeah.
So, there's always a silver lining in every dark cloud, but this is how astrology works. We're showing you that karma is very real, and choice is within the context of what's afforded to you to make that choice. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I could say from a number of things, having the knowledge, of kind of, you know, what I'm up against in this life. Um, it definitely changes the way how you approach a lot of situations. Because I've dodged situations once I was in the know,
Yeah. Once you're in the know, that's different. But
and
you have,
in the know, and having access to the tools to actually capitalize
but
off being in the
but
know. Because
but
sometimes you could,
watch this. Watch
yeah.
this. I'm gonna throw you one. I'm gonna throw you one. It's in your chart that you would be in the know.
Mm-hmm.
What house is the know?
Ninth.
And yours is quite all right.
Yeah.
I'm just showing you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even that shows you.
Yeah.
You can't escape it, right? Because snatch that away, right? You wouldn't be in that know. And without that know, right? It's like, yeah. I mean, like, I'm serious, and people take it for granted. But when you have an astrologer, you have a diviner at your fingertips, and then you have the right date, right time of birth. I mean, time of birth, people take it for granted, but in ancient times, time of birth was like God's way of saying, the supreme way of saying, I bless you, I'll give you the specifics of what you need to do.
Yeah.
So, having that now is a karma changer. So, but it's in there. If you got Jupiter interacting with your ninth house in any major way, and of course, it's fairly decent, fairly placed. Okay, you got some cancellations, even if it's debilitated or exalted, and it's strong. Anytime it's dealing with the ninth, you're gonna have some blessings. You're gonna be in the know, right? Um, it just happens, and it's various multiple combinations that happen. So the supreme being is infinite in its ability to make sure you have opportunities, provided you are in that life to get those opportunities,
Yeah.
right? Because what it allows you to do is to make the next life even better, right? By doing this life right, right? So, it's pretty deep when you really profoundly think about the experiences that you have the opportunity to gain from by having access to knowledgeable people like this, right? Myself, yourself, people that are, in the spiritual know or in spiritual walk. How many things have we really dealt? I mean, I can honestly tell you, I wouldn't say I didn't get out of any situations, but I definitely put a buffer on the potential outcome. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Well, let's look at one more. Um, let's look at Malcolm. Let's look at Malcolm. I want to look at Malcolm because Malcolm really does have a interesting deal here. So, right, there is a connection. It's not readily seen, right? But there is a connection. The eighth lord, right, goes to Aries, which is Marshall, right? So the eighth lord goes to Aries, which is in the fifth, and its lord aspects the ascendant, right? So that shows a direct connection, right,
Well,
to the eighth house. Go ahead.
there's a um parvatana between those two,
Right. I was going to say the,
mutual
ex-
exchange.
the mutual exchange between those two, right,
Mm-hmm.
is very potent, right? Um, Right. And so that mutual exchange is through Mercury, right? And that Mercury then still fills in for the role of Mars. So the eighth lord is still connected to Mars. And let's check out the Dasha. He died in murdered in 1963.
Yeah. Yeah.
63, I believe.
Double checking real quick.
Mm-hmm. Or was it 65?
65.
65. Wow. Look at that.
February.
There it is, folks. There it is. Mars is playing it. Mars Rahu.
Yeah.
No, because he died February.
February 21st. So hold
Right.
on.
So
Let's see.
Mars Jupiter. Right.
Mars, Jupiter.
Mm-hmm. And Mars and Jupiter is the ascendant. Mars is in direct opposition.
And Jupiter aspects.
The eighth lord.
Yeah.
Showing it again. Showing it again. So, folks, right? Karma is very real. This stuff is, but this is not rehearsed. We throw these up and it's right here. Right? This is something that is right in front of us. You cannot even, there's no way to escape it, right? And we could use other examples, right? We could come up with other examples to show. And it's really good. In fact, folks, I present, come up with examples that you would like to see explored in like topics like this, sudden unexpected transformations, sudden deaths, or even in the positive sense, right? Um, um, marriages that last, for over 20 years, or whatever it is that you want to know. Right, present a chart to us if you can. If you know how to research, find it. It's pretty easy. You can get online and search the date and time, see if the person has it. Let us know about those, because we can do those. We can explore those types of different people and see what their lives look like, karmically speaking. But right, you will see, right, when you begin to do the research consistently, that there is a theme that plays out inside these types of situations. And the theme, 9 times out of 10, will have the eighth house, the ascendant, and Mars interacting in some way so that violent change can come. Right. And with that, I say, right, with regards to free will, nothing is free in this planet, right? Nothing is free. A concept of free is an illusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything costs, right? When you're born, it costs, right? When you die, it costs. The dash in between costs, right? So your actions cost. Actions have consequences. Even the lack of knowledge about those actions doesn't change the fact that you, just because you don't know, doesn't stop the effect from happening, right? So by all means, right, we are here to understand that our lives have been pre-scripted, predestined. When you contact someone with insight and knowledge, you know how to walk that life in a way that's commensurate with the intended result, right? Instead of walking it haphazardly, bumping in, right, playing things to where you hope for the best outcome, right? But you prepare for the worst, right? With this knowledge, it's the opposite. You prepare for the best outcome, right? And understand that you've already gone through the process of dealing with the worst, because insight is light. You cut the darkness immediately. When you cut the darkness, you're not bumping around. If you know that there's karmic to deal with illness and disease, you take the proper steps to deal with the illness and disease before it comes to manifestation, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have the propensity to deal with or meet people, right, that typically don't have your best interests at heart, like sixth house type people, right, there's things that you can do, right, mantras you can speak, right, rituals you can prepare to throw these people into the positions they need to be in your life, because it's not about escaping them, it's about becoming one with the situation so that you can match the proper response in due time, right? So that's the gift of this knowledge, is that literally it allows you to be a martial artist of life,
Mhm.
right? Without even really having to fight.
Indeed, well put, very well put. Indeed, indeed. So, with that being said, this episode was brought to you by Pushing Forward Media Group, Calaprusia Astrology, and our good people over there on Patreon. Once again, thank you all for your support, all our patrons, and then just everybody who's listening and tuning into the show every week. I mean, we definitely appreciate that. You know, spending us letting us, talk your ear off for a good hour and some change at once a week and stuff like that. So we definitely appreciate that. Um, Again, like I said, next week will be the season finale for season two. So that put us at 50 episodes. This is episode number 49. So we hit that good nifty 50 or whatnot, So I'm definitely proud about that. I love when you can, start building up a catalog and you don't even realize, you look around like, oh
Mm-hmm.
man, we
Mm-hmm.
we done
We're at
built
a
up a good
hundred.
little catalog,
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, we'll be at 100 in no time next
no
year.
doubt. Yeah, yeah, indeed.
Indeed, indeed. So yeah, I definitely appreciate that, man. Y'all's continuous support and stuff like that, and we can all grow together. You know.
For sure.
Um. So before we get out of here, brother, why you got anything you want to say to the people?
No, just stay tuned. Keep your eyes to the sky and ears to the street. And that's about it.
Indeed, indeed. So with that being said, I want to thank you all for tuning in. We will be back next week, episode 25. Another great episode for you. And you guys be safe out there. And we're out. Peace.
Peace.